very first interview, so we'll see how it goes. This is Colin. You want to introduce yourself, where you go to school, what you study, how old you are?
My name is Colin Bradley. I go to school at the University of Vermont. I'm a religion major with an economics and English minor, um, but I'm pretty interested in philosophy as well, and I'm 21 years old.
Cool. All right, well, as I just told Colin, conducting a research project in Denmark and Copenhagen, showing or trying to discover how religious the Danes actually are and how that affects the status of their society. So Colin is obviously an American student, not a Dane, but I'm just trying to get some perspective on Danish versus American culture. Can you just describe your religious background? You know, if you grew up as any kind of believer or not, and how your religious life changed.
Definitely. I was born as a Protestant Christian, I believe. I would go to church every Sunday with my parents. Me and my brother horribly misbehaved. We would be in the pews, and we would just laugh so hard that the pews would be vibrating on the back, and my mom would get so angry and have to sit between us because like it would be like a really serious service. I really didn't get anything out of it as a kid. We would have church school after the little service, and all the kids were so lame. Like I just couldn't connect with them at all. We would just do like stupid activities. It was really just like a stupid nursery school, and me and my brother really didn't fit in. So in like ninth grade or whatever it was, I had to be confirmed, and at that time, I was kind of like a professed atheist, and I just was like, all this is bullshit. Like religion is so stupid. Like obviously Jesus didn't like make water into wine, kind of those things. But I still had to get confirmed because then that meant I wouldn't have to go to church anymore. So I was like really pumped about that. So I like bore through the confirmation, and then I didn't really go to church anytime after that. Later in my life, kind of going into college, I was kind of interested in like kind of mystery religions or kind of like ancient cult kind of mythological religions, like kind of like pagan Greece, or kind of like there's this Mithraism, that's this old religion, just kind of like secret ancient shit like that. Um, that was pretty interesting to me. And then in college, I took a program called the Integrated Humanities Program, where I took a religion class with this kind of like 70-year-old like Orthodox Jew philosopher, and he really got me into philosophy. And so but he kind of comes at philosophy from a Jewish standpoint, and so I took a lot of classes with him, and I wanted to keep studying under him, so kind of that's how I evolved to be a religion major. Um, so yeah, was that kind of the question?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. So just to get some down here, at ninth grade, would you say that's kind of like the point where you convinced yourself or made the conclusion that you're an atheist?
Like around that time, like as I was just like when I would like go to church, I was just like all this is like stupid, like this doesn't have any connection to me. Like I just felt really kind of like we talk about all these things, and like everyone's like, oh, like I don't know. I just was like, obviously like God doesn't exist. There's not some like man sitting up in the clouds, like obviously. And then kind of after that, kind of between college and like when that happened, I just started to realize, okay, well religion like obviously has like meaning behind these stories, that there's like a higher like believed in this like higher kind of mystical realm of truth that you can access through like religious texts and things like that. But all the kind of like natural claims that when you look at religion at kind of face value, that kind of like I did when I was in ninth grade, I just kind of like denied all that. So kind of.
So obviously, God is not a man in the sky for you. When I say the word God, though, what does that mean for you, if anything?
What does God mean for me, or what does God mean for you?
For you.
Okay. Well, what God means to me, so this is jumping to how I exist in the present moment, is that there are two ways that I can kind of rationally explain God. One is kind of the personal God, where, for example, if you're praying or something. So I'm not doing this right now because I'm kind of overwhelmed here in Copenhagen. But when I was at school, when I was kind of in a routine, I would wake up every morning and I would pray, in the sense that I would say, like, hello God, like these are all the things that I'm grateful for. I hope you do justice to people out there who I can't like access. And I would kind of think about, what am I working on in my day? Who do I want to talk to? What are the things that I want to do? And so in that sense, God acts as a kind of a way for me to bring the things that are really meaningful to me, kind of to my awareness. Um, what God really means to me, though, is kind of the I, the kind of sum total of everything that exists that's positive. I kind of manifest in the word God. That for me, God is my way of addressing everything. So when I say like, thank you, God, if something happens to me and I thank God, it's because there are these innumerable amount of infinite connections in the world, and I've been given everything that I've given, that I have, and like I thank kind of the fact that I could as easily be who I am as someone else who doesn't have any food, who doesn't have all the things that I have. And so God for me is just kind of the kind of interconnectedness of every event and everything that happens. And so at a kind of objective level, is there a kind of force that, for example, like I would always have problems with the term like it was meant to be, and I would be like, I don't know if things are meant to be like that. Like if there's like some kind of like destiny type force that like gives kind of top down meaning to the world. And I think my way of interpreting that is like with things that are meant to be, is that kind of there's an inherent kind of quality in things that I see, that kind of everything like wants to be connected to each other, whether it be like gravity or human love or just like atoms kind of binding to each other in like chemical reactions. But I think that kind of with the idea of like a kind of a God that exists in all things, that I think that this kind of like force, or this kind of like love in Christianity, that there's just kind of this interconnectedness between all things. And I think that that's kind of that quality like leads to like all like the good qualities that we see in like humans.
So you do believe there's some kind of higher power or kind of force, I guess you could say, that exists above the human
No,
dimension? No.
I don't think when you say higher, you're saying that there's a kind of that there's like so literally when you say higher, do you mean that up, do you mean up?
Just like outside of the human.
So outside of myself,
Yes.
is there kind of a force?
Yes.
So, I mean, well, obviously, for example, there's me who's a force, but then there's also you who's a force. So would that make you God? Because like, you're outside of myself?
I think outside of the human dimension, or outside of the,
Human consciousness?
yeah, it's hard to explain, but you say you pray, right?
Mhm.
Who do you pray to, or what do you pray to, or do you just, is that just a way of, would you rather say like meditate instead of pray?
No, I can definitely answer that question.
Yeah.
So kind of when I'm saying like thank you God, or like God thank you for this day, or when I address God, who am I addressing? What am I doing? Am I just clearing my thoughts and thinking personally, or is the word God have an actual meaning? I would say is that I kind of think that there's a kind of level beyond what our senses can perceive, that kind of the certain intentions that things give, that people give out, happen at a kind of subatomic level, if you want to put it scientifically, or just not for me to see. So if I go throughout the world sending out like this positive intention towards people, towards my life, that's gonna have like a real effect on the things I do. I like really believe that like the attitude in which you go into things has a profound influence on things, how things actually happen. And so when I say like, dear God, when I pray, I'm trying to send kind of like energy that I'm feeling out into the world. That like when I was talking about God earlier as kind of like the interconnected chain of everything that exists, and that is kind of God. That when I address God blatantly as difference in meditating, when I'm just meditating, I'm just kind of clearing my thoughts and just letting myself think about like my own personal life. But when I'm praying, I'm actually trying to make a direct connection with everything around me, everything outside of myself.
Okay.
Because there's an infinite of things outside of myself that are very much greater than me. So if you want to take that as it being a higher power, that there's Colin with all my connections in my brain and how I've experienced the world, but then there's everything else in the universe and the world that I don't know about. And so when I pray, I try to kind of address that kind of infinite otherness of the world, and I try to just like kind of connect with it because that's like really meaningful for me to connect with something out there.
Great. Um, let's jump to another term that is loaded with different meanings. Religion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think of when I say religion?
Well, being a religion major, I probably, as you know, if you study religion, a lot of your religion classes start with trying to define religion. Um, and you could say it's an institution, you could say it's a personal feeling, blah, blah, blah. But I think what it comes down to is that what people who have invented the word religion are trying to get at is this kind of coherent kind of worldview that kind of transcends what we take as kind of not religious. So the kind of term religion can only be understood with the fact that there's a lot of people now who aren't religious. Back in like the kind of medieval ages, like I'm not sure when the word religion came out, but it's not like they thought about the world as we're Christians and then like there's a whole other world of non-religious beings. The world is religious to them. Their worldview isn't kind of there's this binary between religion and anti-religion, but it's that obviously God exists. Now let's try to think about things because that's just the way that you kind of have family influences, or the way that like kind of people who like grow up being Muslims in Muslim countries experience their own religion. It's a lifestyle. It's not. It's for us outsiders. We think like they choose their religion, and that it's kind of like I have faith. I have all these religious qualities that these scholars put on me. But it's just that's the way that they experience the world. The same way that your dad says you need to say thank you at the dinner table, and you need to like be responsible for other people. The same way like a Muslim dad will tell her kid that you have to submit to the oneness of God, and you need to be like eternally grateful, and you need to like do all these things. It's just different like things that have developed different historically. You can call one religion, and you can call one like capitalism or any kind of collective mentality. But I think that the point of religion that makes religion different than kind of this anti-religion that I'm talking about is that it connects everything. Then this is why I kind of think that religion is really interesting for me, is that the concept of God is kind of the fact that there is this one connecting force that exists in all the cosmos. And in many other thoughts that aren't religious, there's not this thought that things aren't not as connected as religion seems to claim. And so in that way, I think that religion is kind of focusing on how can we deduce values from the fact that everything has a certain connectedness to each other.
Okay. So, if I'm reading you correctly, you're basically saying that religion has very strong cultural aspects, right? So, for example, Jews, many may not believe in, all the Jewish theological principles, but they're very connected in terms of the cultural values, in terms of what they eat, who they marry, what kind of communities they live in, where they go to school, you know, Shabbat, all these different traditions, right? Okay. So, we're going to wrap up here pretty quickly. It's been very helpful so far, though. If you look at Denmark, do you see religion in Denmark? Does it have an effect? How is your first few weeks in Copenhagen different from your experience back home in terms of the religious life in America and in Denmark?
Well, there hasn't really been much difference. I mean, there are like considerable more Muslims here than where I'm from. So in that sense, religion is more prominent. Where I like come from, I mean, there are like kind of religious groups, but it's not something that I ever experienced in my daily life. But the thing is for me is that like it doesn't matter if someone's religious or not religious. God and religion and all those words are just words. To me, it matters how does that ideology affect how you actually exist in the world. The thing is, I like a lot of times will get along or connect unbelievably well with people who profess to be atheists because like I just use the word God kind of as a way for me to kind of connect with things, but it's not like I don't think that someone me and someone who's an atheist fundamentally disagree on something. That I'm just recognizing a certain thing about the world while he's just recognizing something else. But like, do I care objectively what claims he's making in some huge broader sense? No. I care kind of how religion makes people act, not like in some written ideological argument what matters.
So it's more less the theology and more the on earth.
Exactly.
All right, that's it for now. This is Colin. I'm Nick, and that's it. Thanks.